Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is brought to you in part by our Patreon page at patreon.com/Gear Network. That's Patreon, patreon.com/Gear Network, GERE Network. While you don't have to do this, if you would like to support us, that is a very easy way to do it. For as little as $2 a month, you can get this podcast as well as all others completely commercial free, as well as exclusive content like Patreon-only podcasts, videocasts, and blogs that are not regularly available on GearNetwork.com or any RSS feed. Your support helps us continue to keep up with upgrades to software, purchase professional equipment, and assist us with production costs. Again, patreon.com/Gear Network. Do it right now for as little as $2 a month.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. We took a little bit of a hiatus due to lovely quarantine, coronavirus nonsense, myself having some things to do around the house and little small projects, as did my co-host, Dan Fury, with building a new swing set and pull-up bar. That must have been fun.
Oh, dude, I mean, I was lucky that I got the wood delivered. You know, Lowe's is one of those essential businesses, and they're keeping people's brains occupied. And I'm trying to stay fit and stay busy. You know how it is. I mean, the race season has been canceled up until June for me, even into July. And just trying to keep the sanity. And, you know, I'm hoping that everyone listening to the podcast is enjoying their time at home as best as they can. I know that this is a struggle for a lot of... But thank God, as we've said it before, that professional wrestling is there as a comfort blanket for us all. And I mean, you know, the news keeps going with wrestling. We've all got some stuff. I mean, you've got Snowpocalypse April 15th, 2020 going on in Buffalo.
Yeah,
right
now. we got a lovely lake effect snowstorm going on over here. But
I love the fact that you've got snow over there, and on the east side we've got beautiful blue skies and 60 degrees. So
yeah,
go figure that one out, people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, we are coming off of WrestleMania, and WrestleMania did go through with no crowd. It was a solid event. There was good moments, there were bad moments, but plenty of people have covered that. We're not going to cover it. We're not going to beat you over the head with it. But as every year happens after WrestleMania, WWE seems to really cut the fat a little bit. And this year being no different, but with it being a different situation in the pandemic times that we are due to the coronavirus and everything, today was kind of a Black Wednesday, so to speak, because holy mother of God, did WWE cut ties with a lot of people.
One person that I know on Facebook referred to it as the Rusev Day Massacre, because
the Rusev Day Massacre.
There were a shocking amount of releases, and not just releases of people that you kind of haven't seen on TV, but people that were prominent even up to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Like, people that had a significant amount of screen time, goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the effect that it hit on the backstage aspect. The full list as of right now that's been updated includes...
And if I can interrupt you, Pat G, this list keeps growing. When I got out of work at 2:30 today, there was maybe 14 people.
Yeah.
That list has grown to over 21 by the time that this podcast is recorded at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah. The full list includes Lio Rush, EC3, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Kurt Hawkins, Drake Maverick, which on a side note, Drake Maverick is being released, but he is going to be allowed to participate in the Cruiserweight Invitational to determine an interim Cruiserweight champion.
All right.
Eric Young, Aiden English, Heath Slater, Epico Primo, Sarah Logan, Rowan, Mike Kanellis, Maria Kanellis, Zack Ryder, which was surprising, No Way Jose, Rusev, and then a couple of talents from NXT in Deonna Purrazzo and Alexander Jasek. But the big news, the big hitters were the backstage. There was a writer, Andrew Listenberger, that was let go. Mike Chioda, a referee of 31 years in the WWE, was let go.
The fact that Mike fucking Chioda was released, that was a shocker for me.
That was a big one. And then a lot of producers were let go. Billy Kidman, Pat Buck, Sean Daivari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock, Kurt Angle, Shane Helms, Dave Finley, Lance Storm, Mike Rotunda. So, a lot of names.
Dude, go. Whoa. All right, so let me ask you. Okay, top and bottom. Who was the biggest shocker of a release, and who was one that you were just kind of like, okay. That one I kind of saw coming.
The biggest one was Rusev, due to the fact that obviously Lana is still employed with the WWE, and granted, Lana's kind of got that whole angle with Bobby Lashley going on. The kind of one was EC3. Because they brought him in, they hadn't really used him at all. And to be honest, there were, like, Sarah Logan, too. Sarah Logan was one of the names where I'm kind of like, well, ever since they split the Riot Squad up, she kind of really hasn't been doing anything. But I'm surprised they did let her go because of her being married to one half of the Viking Raiders.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm looking at this list, okay, and it's ever growing. I mean, even so far as a little while ago, I saw that Ruby Riott was released. Yeah, I don't have confirmation of that right now. The one that shocked me the most, okay, was actually Zack Ryder. Rusev was a big hit. Okay, don't get me wrong. Rusev was a kick to the dick because I love the Rusev character. I love when they let Rusev be naturally Rusev and not the Bulgarian Brute. Because if you follow him on social media, some of the things that he says is freaking hilarious. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
But Zack Ryder shocked me. Actually, let's go with Zack Ryder and once again released Kurt Hawkins, because Zack and Kurt figure it out, and their Major Brothers podcast are extremely popular. People love seeing them. They've been workhorses forever. Zack Ryder uninterrupted 14 years with the company, and I mean, he posted on Twitter the other day him doing lat pull downs wearing his weight belt that says "Still Here."
Yeah.
And I mean, then he gets released. And the thing that really gets me is that was one guy that got himself over. I mean, you have to remember, like 9 years ago, he could have been released, and then he managed to do the Z Long Island Story, and reinvented himself and came up with the Internet Championship, and the moment at WrestleMania a few years ago where he won the ladder match with his the Intercontinental Championship ladder match with his father right there, and it was such a beautiful story. I expected him to get a producer job. I expect to maybe end up training guys at NXT. I mean, the man. I'm gonna fucking say this about him. Pardon my French. Can we bleep that out?
Yeah.
We'll bleep it out. I'm gonna say I'm trying to do no swearing. It's very difficult. the thing that really gets me about Zack Ryder is before social media was shoved down our throats in 2011 on WWE television with telling us to hashtag and telling us to go to this YouTube channel and telling us, Zack Ryder was already doing it.
Yep, he was.
Everyone, I hate to say this, The Rock showed up in 2011 and everyone followed suit with his hashtags and everything. Zack Ryder was already doing that. And speaking of The Rock, at Survivor Series 2011, as much as I love to say Madison Square Garden was chanting for The Rock, they were also chanting woo, woo, woo at The Rock.
They were. They absolutely were. And another thing that has kind of rubbed people the wrong way with Rusev being released is Rusev donated $25,000 of his own money to WWE employees that weren't being paid when this whole situation began. Yeah.
Now, there is speculation, because, let's be honest, there's real news, there's fake news, there's pro wrestling news. Very rarely does pro wrestling news end up in the real news, but it did, because $15.5 million of Linda McMahon's money just happened to go...
18.5.
18, sorry. About $3 million off on this one. $18.5 million of Linda McMahon's money. Oh, Linda McMahon also works for the Trump administration. May or may not have gone into a super PAC for him, which may or may not have gotten the state of Florida to consider WWE an essential business, which may or may not have gotten them back up and running as far as television production goes. And also, Vincent Kennedy McMahon himself is also going to be working on the council to get America restarted business-wise.
Yep. To find a way to bring back sports.
Yeah, the same week that he has to file bankruptcy on the XFL and walks away scot-free on any of the losses for XFL.
Yeah.
I would hate to say that $18.5 million came from somewhere, but I'm sure if you looked at the yearly... if you looked at the yearly contracts and how much they were worth for certain guys and girls, I'm sure you probably see $18.5 million there, but that's neither here nor there. To me, this sucks because, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of all of these talents, including Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Who a couple years ago, they did this awesome documentary for him where they were like, he'll always have a home. It's like, well, you fired him as a producer. You fired a lot of your producers. I'm hoping that maybe this is just temporary letting go, and then when all of this is over with, some of the talent will be able to come back, like Gallows and Anderson.
Yeah.
Because there isn't an NEW running. There isn't, a lot of these promotions that will bring these names in running. No one's running right now. The country is at a standstill, so these people have just become unemployed.
Yep.
And like I said, some of them were recently on television.
Gallows and Anderson were part of the Boneyard match.
And to me, it just is, it's a kick in the teeth to a lot of the talent. It's a kick in the teeth to a lot of the producers who have worked very hard to make these shows run, and the trainers. Let's hope that at the, maybe at the end of the second quarter when, we're able to finally get the country and sports back up and running and maybe live event attendance goes up, they can bring guys back that, maybe shouldn't have been let go. I mean, Rusev is one of those dudes. Heath Slater, I know the joke is going around, well, they released Heath Slater finally. That means in a year and a half he'll come back and win the title. Let's not make light of the fact the dude legitimately just lost his job.
Yeah.
During a global pandemic where no one is working. So, you can sit here and try and put a silver spin on it all you want, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of talent that just became unemployed in one foul swoop.
Yeah, and who knows what else could be added to it. Because
it's
it's a matter of the way it's been seen is, WWE is going back to live shows due to the fact of the agreements that they have with USA and Fox Network to at least produce 49 live events in a calendar year.
Yeah, and I'm looking at all of this through another lens, and I mean, maybe you want to speak of this as well. Just because a lot of these guys got released doesn't mean they're going to AEW either.
Oh, no, not at all.
Which seems to be a popular thing that a lot of people are saying, like, oh, AEW will pick these guys up. It's like, AEW really doesn't need Primo Cologne. AEW doesn't need Eric Rowan.
Nope.
AEW, I mean, maybe a Rusev, maybe, I mean, Zack Ryder definitely. Cody would get a Zack Ryder and a Kurt Hawkins any day of the week. You'd be lucky to have them. But, I mean, you have to look at the production. A year ago, WWE got handed, less than a year ago, wow, if you look at it, less than 9 months ago, WWE got handed how many billions of dollars? $2 billion?
Yeah, it was a couple $2 billion from a Fox deal.
Okay, and then another $2 billion from USA, which is a Universal deal.
Yeah. In
order to produce, Raw and NXT on their show. Dude, they're hurting when they are releasing wrestlers after getting $4 billion less than 8 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing is, unlike any other time that we've seen guys get released, there's no wrestling going on. Yeah, WWE is doing shows from the Performance Center, and AEW is doing shows from wherever they're at. But outside of that, and Impact's doing their shows, and are always just doing their shows. Like, the main companies are doing shows without crowds, but, like, the guys that would hit the independents, like a Kurt Hawkins, like a Zack Ryder, they would go to your ESWs, your AIWs, your
NEWs.
Your NEWs or whatever. Like, your prime independent companies, they don't have that option right now.
No. And the worst part about this is you're looking at the caliber of talent that was released. Some of them can go international. Some of them were just learning their craft. I mean, you look at Mike Chioda. Dude, I mean, he started in WWE in 1989.
Yep. He
was released. Senior official Mike Chioda. Even when he had the bad mullet in, like, the mid-90s. Like, you remember Mike Chioda. And to have him gone, I mean, a lot of the producers are gone now. I mean, so you're running on a skeleton crew for producers? I mean, is this to say that maybe WWE is thinking, okay, well, after this comes back, we're not going to be able to fill 15 to 20,000 seat arenas to capacity anymore. We might have to work smaller arenas at first, which means we might not be able to have the agents and the producers like we once had. I mean, it's very strange to think of this, and maybe this goes to that whole overproduction that people talk about, where an agent tells you exactly how your match is going to go. You just go out and do it. Like Dean Ambrose said in his Talk is Jericho interview, like, they tell you what to do. They tell you everything. They tell you what moves. They tell you exactly how to do it, what camera is going to be pointed at you, and what facial expression to make, because there's no creativity there. It's like, maybe there's going to be a positive out of this, and if you limit the number of producers, maybe letting the guys do their own thing, maybe that'll help them. But really, what thing do they have to do?
That's the truth. Like, Edge even said it with there being no crowds. Like, you have to sell to the camera, and honestly, it's making promos better, and it's teaching guys how to work without the crowd being there and relying on that crowd interaction. And
yes.
This is the thing, is once everything does eventually get back to normal and you're back in front of the WWE universe and there's crowds and everything, honestly, the one hope is that everybody that has worked or has been involved on TV, like, remember, like, you don't always have to sell to the crowd. Like, you could sell to the camera. And like you said, maybe the skeleton crew, as far as WWE, it'll be a good thing because maybe it'll be more focused on the content in the ring or on the screen than it is with 1900 camera cuts. Because truth be told, the biggest aspect that I enjoyed about WrestleMania was hearing the play-by-play by Michael Cole.
You know, and it's funny, if you go back and you watch that, I mean, you have a phenomenal opportunity to... I watched a lot of WrestleMania with the volume off, as funny as that sounds. You know, because it goes back to something that John Cena said in regards to The Rock versus Hogan at the Sky Dome.
Yeah.
Okay? Where if you watch that match with the volume off, man, it was brutal to watch. And you're just kind of like... is he right? And then you go back and you watch it, and you're like, yeah, without the crowd, that match was just kind of, it wasn't fast paced or anything, but it told a phenomenal story. With matches like Edge and Randy Orton's, I mean, they beat the poop out of each other, over and over again for like almost 30 minutes. It was a great match. Didn't need a crowd. There were other matches that really didn't need a crowd. It would have been great to have a crowd, but you look at Drew McIntyre winning the title that night, he talked to the camera. You know what I mean? Like, he broke the fourth wall. Maybe that'll give this opportunity for more fourth wall breaks and acknowledging the audience that is sitting at home watching you. You know, because we have to remember, in the bygone attitude era of 20 years ago, you know, there was 9 million wrestling fans tuning in on Monday night to watch wrestling. Where'd they all go?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing, is you now have the time where, all right, maybe it's one of the things of, yes, WWE has been deemed essential in Florida. They're trying to help people cope and everything because there's no baseball, there's no basketball, there's no sports of any kind. But at the end of the day, it's still one of the things of these people are putting their bodies on the line, and not to mention their health. And this leads us into the next segment, is former women's champion Ronda Rousey was on a podcast, I believe, and she said some things that were not too kind. She basically called wrestling fake at the end, at the end of the day. She basically was like, wrestling fake, it's all predetermined,
she slammed Kate, like, okay. She's done it before. She was doing it before.
Yeah.
Before she left.
But
okay?
not to the extent that...
Yeah.
Not to the extent that she did it this time around.
Yeah, she basically said that it's an insult to actual fighters for anyone who is a professional wrestler to go out and make people believe that what they're doing is any sort of real, because if you've gotten 300 fights a year, you'd be dead.
Yeah. And
okay. Go ahead.
After the interview and everything, she got a lot of pushback from people that were from the interview. Alexa Bliss was like, well, if this is fake, then why was I out of wrestling for a year with the possibility of not coming back due to concussions? Nia Jax pushed back. It was like, I just had double knee surgery that put me out for almost a year because of pro wrestling. Oh, so
Nia Jax honestly had my favorite rebuttal where she basically said she'll throw her career away if Ronda Rousey comes back because she'd love to punch her in the face for real.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, Nia Jax, I wouldn't want to get punched by her.
No, not at all. It was not at all. Also, and they talked about it last night on WWE Backstage, and a man who has been in both arenas, WWE and UFC, CM Punk, he weighed in on it, and Punk's comments were, she's doing her job. Look, I love this. This is pure chaos, and I don't see this ending well, whether it's real or scripted, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's fantastic to watch everyone bite on it and get butthurt about it. You know, people say Ronda is self because she got knocked out twice. They say she's not a real fighter. They say she's not a real wrestler, but the whole time they don't realize she's got them all right here. They're wrapped around her finger. And then he brought up the potential of the four horsewomen of wrestling versus the four horsewomen of MMA. So it's one of the things of it. Yes, Ronda Rousey called wrestling fake, and she took a shot at the fans because, to be honest, I don't think she could handle the fact that they were booing her. But on that point, that's when she was at her best.
So I have a thought on this.
Okay.
Now this goes back to Holly Holm and what I like to refer to as the kick heard round the world.
Yeah.
The night that the invincible, the indestructible, the nigh defeatable Ronda Rousey got knocked on her ass. Okay? She got knocked out. She got kicked in the face, and she looked awful. Okay? And she disappeared from UFC, mixed martial arts. She disappeared from the public eye entirely. Okay?
Yep.
And after a while, when the rumors came out that she wanted, that she was training again and dipping her toes back in, she came to a press conference to announce, basically it was to announce that the next fight was going to be, I believe it was Nunes versus Rousey.
I believe it was Nunes.
All she did was walk out, do a stare down, and leave. Didn't speak, didn't say anything, and fans, MMA fans, were like, what the hell? Like, you don't even have anything to say. Like, you just showed up, got paid to stand there for 2 seconds, and then walked away. And then she lost to Nunes. Now, in that time, Ronda Rousey openly admitted that after she lost to Holly Holm, she got real depressed.
Yeah.
And she got her self-esteem went to the toilet. They said that she was just a wreck. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't do anything. She just sat at home. Now, for a fighter, for any professional athlete, a loss is big. But especially for a fighter, you have to remember that they are in the ring or octagon, person to person. And if they lose in front of the whole world. And up to that point, you have to remember the joke was, if you wanted to watch one of Ronda Rousey's fights, all you needed was an Instagram 15-second video, because literally that would be what it was. Ronda Rousey was the best mixed martial arts fighter at her time because no one had tested her. And I mean, now you have Nunes, who's double champ, and you have had Holly Holm kick her in the face. My point being with me saying this stuff is that she's not mature enough to know that, I don't believe that Ronda Rousey doesn't think she's not the greatest. I think she legitimately believed and believes that she's the greatest fighter, that she is the greatest athlete, female combative athlete. I honestly do believe that. And any shortcomings that she might have, I believe she, to a certain extent, is too immature to realize that she's got those shortcomings. And I know that there's some people out there who are probably listening to me speak and are like, well, what the hell do you know? You know, you've never been in an octagon. You know, yes, I've been a pro wrestler, but as a competitive athlete on the race course, and just someone who's been in a very alpha male situation like the Army, where everyone wants to be alpha male, and if you're not alpha male, you're kind of treated like a bitch. No offense. Sorry, you can bleep that out. The thing that really gets me about the way Ronda is doing it is if Ronda is coming back at next year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles, which would be a huge marquee match, the Four Horsewomen versus the Four Horsewomen, like CM Punk alluded to and like fans have wanted to see ever since the Mae Young Classic. Will it happen? Probably not, but who knows? Especially after Shayna Baszler lost to the man at WrestleMania. The way that I view this Ronda Rousey thing is if this is Ronda lashing out at the business, then so be it. Let her lash out. But she's tarnishing the legacy of Rowdy Piper by doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
She claims to love Roddy Piper. She claims to hold the hot rod in such esteem. She claims to, idolize Roddy Piper and his style, even to the point where her marketing in WWE was done so at the blessing of Roddy Piper, allowing her to use the Rowdy. Well, Rowdy Piper would have never called wrestling fake. He would have never broken kayfabe. He would have fought tooth and nail to protect the business that he loved.
He did fight tooth and nail until the day he died.
Until the day he died. And to have an ungrateful little child, even if this is a work and she's just trying to, maybe cause some pandemonium with the fans before they come back, that's great. There's great. You can call the fans fat slobs and marks and pieces of crap. You can do all that without burying the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I on Booker T's side with saying that she owes the business an apology? I'll agree with Booker T on this one. But more importantly than that, maybe she ought to realize that in a couple days, on April 17th, it's International Rowdy Piper Day to commemorate the legacy of the Hot Rod, the person that she claims to love and idolize. Maybe she ought to show some goddamn respect for that. Pardon my French.
No, not at all. And this is the thing, is she claims that she left the WWE because of the fans. That's why she left. And if she comes, and it was also the travel schedule, because she even brought that up. She'd be like, I'd be in a full week, I'd be only home for a day and a half, and and whatnot. Like,
you want to come in, okay? There are, and I'm not exaggerating, tens of thousands of guys and girls on the independents right now who would give up everything that they have for an opportunity at a tryout at the Performance Center in order to work the schedule that this woman had that was given to her because of her stature as being Rowdy Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
Okay? I can name off half a dozen or more female wrestlers that I have seen in locker rooms that deserve to have that spot. One of them was just released today from developmental.
Yep.
Okay? That I've seen personally at shows. Super professional. Loves the business. Okay? She got her spot because of who she was. She had one hell of a year. Don't cry because the fans booed you. Especially after you gave, whether it was a kayfabe interview or not, after you gave an interview basically bashing professional wrestling.
And this is the thing, is she bashed professional wrestling to the extent of to the full extent of an extent that you don't do. And yes, okay, It is 2020, alright? Everybody knows professional wrestling at the end of the day is scripted. The outcome is predetermined, whatever. We all know this, okay? Everybody knows this. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to... There's been so many things done to peer the curtain back, aka, as we say, The Undertaker has an Instagram.
Yeah, Undertaker's on Instagram.
It's the thing of... It's now to the point of... Okay, if you're really doing this to get people to get fired up and everything, alright, I can respect that. If you're trying to work yourself, you're trying to work a quote-unquote what's called as a worked shoot, alright, I can understand it. That's fine. That's fine. But it's just a major slap in the face to everybody that has done this for their lives. And a lot of people have commented on it, from Becky Lynch to Alexa Bliss to Nia Jax to legends like Booker T and Hulk Hogan. It's crazy, especially with the fact that, yeah, if you are truly building to a 4 horsemen women versus 4 horsewomen match next year for WrestleMania 37 in LA, that may not even be an option because of the news that was just reported today by the LA Times. And the LA Times reported that in an internal Los Angeles Fire Department email, Mayor Eric Garcetti indicated that large gatherings such as concerts and sporting events may not be approved in the city for at least a year. So we're looking at mid-2021, and if you're saying a year from now, that's past when WrestleMania usually is.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, this entire situation,
WrestleMania 37.
About it.
Yeah, and WrestleMania 37 right now is currently scheduled for March 28th, 2021 at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California.
You and I have talked about this repeatedly, about this entire situation has just thrown the entertainment industry on its head. And, you know, after seeing what has recently transpired in Florida, does WWE have the clout to be able to try and move that barometer so that they can get their event in there? Yeah, especially if they were to say, hey, you know, our events bring X amount of revenue to certain areas. We know that Inglewood would benefit from a $15 million boost in sales of, you know, everything from hotels to Ubers to we know WWE brings revenue.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And this is the strange situation about this is we're trying to plan for an event for a year from now, and we don't even know what's happening next week.
That's the factual truth.
You know, like, I'm not trying to poo-poo on WrestleMania next year. I would love to see an awesome WrestleMania. I'd love to see Sting versus Undertaker in a Boneyard match at next year's WrestleMania, Vince. But dear creative. But as far as potentially seeing Ronda back in the ring, you know, I liked her year. Okay, it was a good year. The way it ended, people might say whatever. Would I care if she came back? Nah, I wouldn't. It honestly reminds me of Goldberg's 1 year from 2003 to 2004.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have an impact for me. It stinks that it's turned into this, and it stinks that she's, you know, probably poo-pooed on. And I mean, you have to remember is that if she decides to come back, she's going to have to walk into that locker room. And if it's an icy reception, that's on her.
Absolutely. And the thing is, based on comments that she's had, I honestly think if she does come back to the WWE, it's not going to be the warm, fun reception that it was when she first showed up.
No, I mean, you know, it's lonely at the top, but like I said, I don't think Ronda Rousey necessarily views herself as anything but the best, which can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. It's something that honestly haunts mixed martial artists who make the transition to WWE or professional wrestling. Maybe not so much for wrestlers who go to mixed martial arts, but as far as you'll look at Ken Shamrock, it took a long time for them to tame Ken Shamrock for him to be marketable.
Yep.
You look at, Ronda Rousey. Ken Shamrock never once came out and said anything bad about professional wrestling. He still loves it. He still does it. We see him in Impact, for God's sakes. Shayna Baszler has dogged professional wrestling. There are others. Matt Riddle. The way Matt Riddle has called people out, some people say it rubs them the wrong way, that this is not mixed martial arts. You don't call people out like that. Maybe that is the whole alpha stigma of mixed martial arts, where, you think you're the best? All right, nut up or shut up. Prove it. I mean, there is only one way to prove it in mixed martial arts: either choke out or get beat, or beat the other guy.
Absolutely. And this is the thing: is with pro wrestling, we all know stories, we all have seen things and everything, and this leads me to finish up the show here with focusing on the Dark Side of the Ring series by Vice. And the series that Vice has done is very well done. I'm not going to lie about it. They are in their second season, and so far the episodes have been done really well. The first season was good because you had a lot of things that you had episodes that were done with things that everybody knew of, so to speak. Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth, the Montreal Screwjob, of course, the Von Erich family, Gino Hernandez, the Fabulous Moolah, and then, of course, Bruiser Brody. And while the initial season wasn't the emotional roller coaster that it seems like season 2 is going to be, it seems like the people that are doing these episodes are trying to tell the stories for the people they're talking about. Where I remember watching the season 1 thing is, we all know, everybody who's a wrestling fan knows the whole backstory about the Montreal Screwjob because of the documentary Wrestling with Shadows.
Yes.
You see that as from a Bret Hart side, and Bret Hart has even talked about in numerous interviews that when he suffered his stroke, he actually did one where he believes his stroke happened due to all the stress that he was carrying and the bitterness towardsward everybody because of that. Towardsward Vince, towardsward Shawn, towardsward Earl Hebner, and everything. He's like, I honestly think my stroke happened because I was carrying all this weight of all this mental stress and bitterness and everything. But he said Vince McMahon was one of the first people to call when he was in the hospital for his stroke. Now, with season 2, it let off pretty hard and heavy with the story of Chris Benoit and Nancy Benoit, and that's something that we are going to focus on at a later time. There's the episode that was done with the life and crimes of New Jack. We all know who New Jack is. And I watched the episode. I didn't watch it live. I watched it via YouTube. It was so well done that you could understand why New Jack had the reputation that New Jack did.
Yeah. And being someone who loved ECW and the notoriety of New Jack and the legacy of New Jack was one that was made in blood.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was one of the first wrestlers that I watched where I was like, he's doing this for real.
Yep.
You know, he's not messing around. And, of course, we all hear stories, and, you know, it was talked about with, you know, the mass transit incident. Yep. You know, and everything.
Which they focused on a bit. They focused on a lot of that.
Yeah, it was the event that almost canceled. I mean, if you look back at it, that almost caused a entire pay-per-view to fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you look at the impact of that. That almost caused an entire thing to not happen. And it's really crazy when you think about it. And to me, I look back at that and I just say, well, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. But as far as the way that this show is progressing,
yeah, and
they've found their niche.
Oh, they have. And the latest episode I watched this morning was Jimmy Snuka and the girlfriend that he had and everything. And the amount of research that this team is doing and the people they're finding, as far as the Jimmy Snuka thing, they found a lot of people who were involved in that whole situation. Like, we're talking, like, friends and family and police and lawyers and reporters and just the amount of detail that is being done. And granted, yeah, so far the second season has been very emotional. And it's going to even be more emotional because of the continued episodes for the rest of the season, because you have up next is the assassination of Dino Bravo, which is going to be one of them emotional episodes. And then you have the David Schultz and Slap Hurled Around the World, Herb Adams in the UWF, and then the finish off season 2 is the Road Warriors and Owen Hart. And like that's gonna be the big one, is that last one. Is the Owen Hart episode. Like, the Chris Benoit episode, like, I learned a few things that I didn't know, but they talked to the producer, I believe, who's doing the Dark Side of the Ring series. He had an interview. I'm gonna bring it up real quick. He was asked about doing the Owen Hart thing and talking to Martha Hart. And because the big story is, ever since that, Martha Hart has wanted nothing to do with the Hart family nor the WWE, and it's the prime reason why we believe that Owen Hart is not in the is the prime reason that Owen Hart is not in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Yeah. The Jeffrey Harris, who's with 411, did the interview with the producer Evan Hunzi, and he talked about his getting Martha Hart on board, Owen's widow. And he was asked how they got Martha to be involved with the episode, and the producer's like, well, I mean, it was just a basic email that I sent to her that we really wanted to tell a story and have it be part of the show. She sent back her number and a bunch of questions to be answered, and it wasn't like, and he said he wasn't like, I was really impressed by that. No one's ever really put us that to before. And he's basically just going on how working with her and getting the story out is their prime focus.
Yeah.
He talked about how he took a different approach to the Chris Benoit episode, working with Martha Hart, so on and so forth. It's one of the things of, this is a kind of series that is great, but a lot of people see it as it's opening wounds, so to speak. And yeah, it's guaranteed. It's opening wounds. And when I'm going to touch on it with Jim Cornette had Kevin Sullivan on his podcast, and Cornette asked Kevin Sullivan about why he declined to be involved, and Kevin Sullivan was truthfully honest. He's like, I decided not to be involved due to Nancy's parents.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's something they're still dealing with, that tragedy. And he's like, the respect that I had for Nancy's parents is the reason that I didn't want to be involved in that. I chose not to be involved. And it's one of the things of, yeah, with the New Jack episode, it would have been great to have Paul Heyman involved, but Paul Heyman's in the position that he is with WWE. With the Road Warriors, with Owen Hart. The Owen Hart episode, like, I guarantee you there's going to be people out there and go, I wish WWE was involved to an extent, but then on the flip side, you're going to go, yeah, but you also wish they weren't because of the details and everything.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Owen Hart one only because I'm one of the people that want to see him in the Hall of Fame, but I also want to know the details as to why Martha has had her stance for so long. Because, yeah, WWE did a settlement and all that, gave her a bunch of money and everything, but, like, I want to see that whole aspect.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see who they have as, like, the figureheads of that episode, because so far the figureheads, like, for the episodes that have been shown have been great. Where with the Benoit episode, you had Jericho, you had Dean Malenko, you had Chavo Guerrero, you had Nancy's sister, you had David Benoit. For the Jimmy Snuka one, you had all the talking heads that were, like, factual to that story. And it's just one of the things of wrestling has a dark history and a dark past, and it's nice to see some of the things being discussed, but in an educational way, because you're learning, like, us being wrestling fans. Yeah, we know a bunch of details, but we don't know all the details. Yeah. And the crew at Dark Side of the Ring's doing an amazing job with these stories.
I'm going to agree with everything you just said. In fact, there are times where even I can't say it better, which is kind of funny because, I'm a mouthy guy. But I think if WWE had their hand in it, and this is just the only thing I can really add as far as the Owen Hart story or the Chris Benoit episode, I'm sure, now is a good time to even say it. With the Owen Hart one, I wouldn't want a WWE spin. I think that one's going to hit a lot of raw nerves because I think you're going to find out exactly maybe how little WWE truly cared.
Oh, absolutely.
And you already got a taste of that with, with David Benoit.
Yep.
To be 100% fair, I am a huge Chris Benoit fan. Was a huge Chris Benoit fan. And for 13 years now, I guess I've looked for closure for the case. And I've grasped straws as a fan for the explanations behind what happened that night. And the unfortunate part is that, I think if you glorify Chris Benoit, that's almost the same as glorifying someone like Ted Bundy.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It's
hard for me to say that. It's hard for me to say that as a fan. But, Chris Benoit, especially after watching that, I have a completely different outlook on Chris Benoit after that. And maybe that was what it needed to do.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I think that was cathartic because WWE kind of shut that door in our face and wouldn't let us rationalize what happened.
No. It was once all the details came out and about what truly happened that weekend, it was, as Chris Jericho put it, you acted like the man's career never existed.
And they did acknowledge that in the documentary.
Yeah.
But the thing that really gets me is it's like, when you don't let people mourn, I mean, they did a very good job of showing you, like, think about David. Think about all the people that were close to him. And then all of a sudden it's like, shut that off.
Yep.
It's not healthy. We live in an age where, I know this is going to sound really heartless, you have people who put their cell phones in their kids' faces or their nephews' faces when you tell them that their parents died of a heroin overdose, because you want to teach people a message about what heroin overdose does to people, which is cruel and unusual punishment to that poor child who has to relive that video on Facebook over and over and over again as it gets reshared. We never, as fans, I think, got a chance to heal from the Benoit incident, or Eddie, really, because the Benoit 2-part episode was really the story of Eddie and Chris. But as far as this series goes, I think that it's doing a great job of giving you the true, ungritty backstory that a polished WWE documentary wouldn't allow you to have.
Oh, absolutely.
And for that, kudos to them, because I know all of the wrestlers that are involved with these are probably going to be blacklisted for quite a while. I mean, even saying the name of certain wrestlers. I mean, WWE has never acknowledged New Jack, even in WWE ECW.
Nope. And honestly, I would truly have to, go on the network and truly look. I honestly really don't think there's much New Jack related material as far as what's on the network as far as ECW goes.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point where when, they did the WWE reunion show in 2005, New Jack was mentioned for like a millisecond.
Yeah.
And that's nope.
Yeah, he was mentioned. He was mentioned for like 0.002, and that was it.
Yeah, it's like, ew. Yeah, goodbye. And to be honest, there's a lot that this show has to offer, and I highly recommend that fans check it out.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the things of, you don't get the direct WWE narrative, because there's been so many documentaries and everything done from WWE that they're from the WWE perspective.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, one of the people that I know from independent wrestling, Tyson Dukes, who he was involved with the Dark Side of the Ring, and he was involved in the Chris Benoit episode and everything. I do know that. I'm gonna try to reach out to him and see if I can get him on the show to talk about his involvement and everything with the show. Uh-huh. Because to get like an inside look as to how the show may be done and how the shows may be run, that'd be a solid thing, because I love the series.
Yeah, and the way that this show is done, I see nothing but great things coming from the future for this show.
Not at all, because there's a lot of things in pro wrestling that are untold.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the Bruiser Brody episode was hard to watch.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was. And what's funny is my mom, discovered it on a whim. And she's like, who's Bruiser Brody? I'm like, he was huge in Texas. along with the Von Erichs, and he was murdered. Like, he got stabbed in a shower.
Yeah, he was murdered by a Hall of Famers with a Hall of Famer in association. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And my mom started watching, and she's like, some of this stuff I never knew. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's that in depth, Mom.
Yep.
And this is the thing: if you're a wrestling fan and you're not watching these, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like,
yeah, I mean,
plain and simple. Plain and simple. You're doing yourself a disservice, and whatnot. So it's one of the things of there's stuff out there that is not WWE related that is great material. There's the Dark Side of the Ring. There's the Guy Evans Nitro book, which I just finished. Like, I had to re-download and restart, and I just finished it a couple of days ago. And holy mother of God, I'm truly hoping that the Dark Side of the Ring at some point covers that. Like, covers that whole WCW night, like the whole TBS AOL Time Warner merger.
You know, I mean, that would be an outstanding episode, because I do believe, and I've said this before on this podcast, I think Eric Bischoff gets one hell of a raw deal on this.
He does. And
I think Eric Bischoff does. And in fact, if you could secure a Ted Turner interview.
Yeah.
That would be, to me, the end-all, be-all, because Ted has been extremely quiet.
Oh, yeah. Like, considering that whole thing, that whole situation, and I read the book and everything, he basically had the rug pulled under him.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like, and Eric Bischoff has said it many times. The only reason WCW existed for as long as WCW did was because of Ted Turner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ted loved wrestling. And, yeah, I honestly, truly believe in my heart of hearts that if Ted Turner was not pushed out, it would have been a completely different scenario in the wrestling world today.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, reading the book and everything, I also believe if TBS wouldn't have pulled the television time from the deal that Bischoff and Fusion Media had brokered, it might have been a different thing as well.
Yeah, and you know, I would hope that story makes it out there eventually, instead of the WWE produced, oh, well, it was Eric Bischoff spending all Ted's money. It's like, or it was the fact of a changing climate within telecommunications that brought down Ted Turner. And honestly, it kind of would make the story a little less victorious.
Yeah.
And a little bit more like, wow, you know, had this deal gone through, we may not have been doing victory laps like we thought.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. And that's the point that I've gotten from reading the Nitro book is WWE didn't win the war. WWE was a victor of circumstances.
They outlasted them. I mean, they managed to do something that was outstanding. They were able to hold strong while TNT and AOL ripped itself apart.
Yep. And if you read that book, especially the last 5 to 8 chapters, you get the full sense of it was a complete destruction. Like, there was nobody in Turner Broadcasting and as far as AOL that wanted WCW around. And they did, and then on top of it, the the whole situation with Vince Russo and the merger and everything, like, dude, like, I've read that book. I read that book, and I'm like, you know what? WWE didn't win the war. They were a victor of circumstance, and they were able to last longer because Vince McMahon it's Vince McMahon's word above everyone else's.
Yeah, and I am honestly hoping that you're right. For season 3, open up with the death of WCW. The real death of WCW. And since everyone else likes to rip off our ideas anyway.
Yeah, I know, right? Everybody likes to take our ideas. But that's going to do it for us here on the TTRP. Thank you for listening. We are of course, brought to you by Gear Network and GearNetwork.com. For Dan Fury, I'm Pat G. We will see you on the flip side. The Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast is brought to you by Gear Network and ShopGear.com. We can be listened to via Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you can get your podcasts. The TTRP introduction was done by Trevor Dugan. The show is hosted by Patrick Ancheski and Daniel Roberts. Post-production of the TTRP is done by Patrick Ancheski and John Cimino. If you'd like to follow us via social media, you can search Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast on Facebook. You can follow us at Twitter by using the name Turnbuckle_Talk. Or if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us via email at turnbuckletlkradio@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, downloading our episodes, following us on social media, and interacting with us.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.